August 1913. Your sister needs to leave, the Earl of Grantham told Ernest Ashby one morning. He had been presented with a list of complaints, from Carson, from Branson, from his mother. Ernest looked at his sponsor gravely. I can tell her to behave, he told Robert Crawley. I need her, Lord Grantham, Ernest insisted. I am working every hour I can to ensure everything is completed before my departure. My father ... he is unwell. And, as you heard, she is going away to our grandmother's. We agree she needs more formality. It is only for another week. She has been ... unsettled of late. And he did not dismiss Ernest's words out of hand. He thought to himself, later. He listened. She may stay, Lord Grantham. And it is entirely the esteem I hold for you that holds her here. But there are conditions. He strode to the window and glanced out of it. The gardeners were rolling the cut lawn and aerating the ground. Another hot day. He turned, reaching for the bell pull. She will not be out of your sight. She must not speak, even if she is spoken to by the family. She must not make extra work for the servants. You will tell her. Ernest bowed his head. Could we have done any better? Milo might have been better off with Thomas as her brother. He knew instinctively what to do with her, and how to speak to her to get the right response. I will. Ernest nodded, and glanced towards the door as Thomas brought in a tray. Tea and sandwiches. The Earl was about to face a mountain of work. With respect, Lord Grantham, Thomas said to his employer. Thomas. Beside him, Carson brought in a plate of sandwiches and put it down next to the tea. He stood beside his footman, and gave him a quick flash of disapproval. I overheard what Mr. Ashby said. Milo has been a guest in your home since she was walking by her father's side. Staff who have known her all her life know there is no harm in her. What are you saying, Barrow? He ignored the pleading look Ernest was giving him. A recent arrival to your staff is making her life ... difficult. Laughing at her, provoking her, raising a hand to her. What? Lord Grantham's face clouded. What I believe ... Mr. Ashby. Ernest saw his lover's eyes turn to him for a moment. Is too polite to explain is that he will be grateful to keep his sister close to him to keep her from fright. What? Lord Grantham turned to Carson. Carson, is what Barrow has to say true? Does young Melusina feel frightened in our home? Carson looked to Thomas again and then back to the Earl. My lord, it is the first that I have heard of it, Carson told him. Neither Barrow nor Mr. Ashby have approached me with concern of maltreatment of the girl. I see, Lord Grantham replied, and turned back to Ernest. May I suggest that Milo may be growing up? She is ... 9 now, Mr. Ashby. Ernest nodded. Perhaps your living arrangements with your sister here are ... not suitable. Bates hit her. Thomas Barrow shot back. I don't know what she was doing, but he raised his hand to her. Carson. Lord Grantham shook his head. Young Melusina has been welcome at Downton Abbey ever since her father and her brother were commissioned here. I know she can be a handful. He broke off as he saw Carson's expression. I have put limits on her behavior, through Mr. Ashby, as you have heard. But Bates cannot hit the child. Leave it with me, my lord, Carson began. No, Carson, bring Bates to me, Lord Grantham told his butler. And little Milo. 88,888,888. Did Mr. Bates hit you? Lord Grantham stopped to Milo's level and looked her in the eye. Milo looked back for a moment, enough time to give her answer, before the looking got too much for her. Yes, Lord Grantham. Yes, Robert Crawley echoed, continuing to look at her rather than Bates, as he stood in the library, his valet by the door, his electrical engineer by the fireplace and his sister by his side. And what did you do? The Earl asked Milo. She looked up to him. Glance. Hold. It was a technique she had found useful and meant that she appeared to be like other people. No one interrupted her. She wasn't overlooked. I don't know, Lord Grantham. Glance. Look away. The Earl looked to his valet. Bates. What did she do? Bates shifted from foot to foot, and nodded to Lord Grantham, with a knife-like glance to Milo. She took an apple from the stores, The brown bear growled. Milo could not look at him now she had caught his eye. She was sure he would eat her. Not for the first time. But would he? When she had told Ern, he had told Milo that none of the people in Downton Abbey would eat her or hurt her except him. So you hit her? My lord, I did not. I chased her off, and may I say, my lord, I was not aware that the child was entitled to take good from the larder. I chased a thief. Was it true? Milo thought back to the day she had crept into the kitchen, and into the stores. Apples were allowed in her pocket. The round lady Mrs. Patmore had told her that. But she has seen no thief. So she had an apple. There was a string around a bag. The light had played on it so beautifully. She had opened the bag, so the string trickled down the hessian wrapper like a delicate fall of water. It looked pretty, and she had reached for it. Dates. The brown bear, Bates, said. Milo did not move her head. How could she begin to find the right words to explain? Words were like magic. You had to find them, put them together. You had to find the right ones, not half the right ones, and you could only conjure them once. Why were some people blessed such that they could do all of that and beguile and charm? Bewitch, like the sparkling, like Lady Sybil. He had hit her. Lord Grantham, Milo began as the old king. As Lord Grantham listened to her. Keep looking at him, the magic works better when you do that. He raised his hand, and he did hit me. I only took apples. I did touch the figs. I did not take them, my lord. Bates interrupted, as a glare from both Ernest and Thomas bookended him. Bates, keep quiet. Lord Grantham continued to look at Milo. Me Lucina. Milo jerked her head up. She was in trouble. Can you explain, Milo? I was looking at the figs, the bag of the figs, Milo went on, slowly and deliberately. The ribbon was pretty, and the light played on its fibers so beautifully. I wanted to touch it, and she did it. She looked at Bates, whose face looked as if a thunderstorm was about to strike. You are a thief. Just admit it, roared the brown bear. Milo stared back, wide-eyed. Bates, you will be silent. Then Lord Grantham turned an altogether softer voice to Milo. Please, continue, Milo. And then he raised his stick and hit my arm. He called me a thief, but I am not a thief, Milo insisted, adamantly, and turned to Lord Grantham, continuing, a thief is someone who takes things without asking, or without permission. I have your permission to take apples, so they aren't stolen. Did I need to ask you, too? Milo wondered, feeling she might be homing in on the answer. Milo, Lord Grantham said, looking her at closely, I believe you. No one has the right to hit you. You should come to me if they do, or your brother, or your father. Do you understand? Yes, my lord. Milo nodded, gravely. Ernest held out a hand. Milo did not run. She was 9, after all. She did not cry. Only babies cried, Mrs. Brewer said, but she strode to her brother and took his hand, and he led her out of the library. You too, Barrow. And thank you. As he left, Thomas sneered silently to his lordship's valet. Behind them, words permeated the oak door. She got under my feet. I tried to stop her. She fell. I fell. I keep her here. I tolerate her difference. Her brother's research work brings a great deal of prestige to Downton. The words got quieter and quieter as they walked away. You were honest, and that was all I can ask of you, Ernest said, gravely. They got round the corner and Milo burst into tears. Big, heavy, snot-inducing tears. She cowered into Ern's leg, and held onto it, huffing and bawling into it. Milo, Thomas tried, his voice stern and level. But Ernest put a hand on his lover's shoulder. Help me pick her up. There, Ernest soothed, as the wet-faced, sobbing sister of his curled to his shoulder. It's better to let her cried out, and she will be all right. Deep down, she knows she did something that wasn't right. She took apples, which she was allowed, Thomas declared, as they walked towards the stairs. And she touched a ribbon, and Bates, for whatever reason, went for her. Thomas leaned to Ernest's ear. And you know, no matter his excuses of an accident, He tried to do it before. Milo slept easily in the bed beside the generator. Thomas took his hand. Ernest pulled away, but Thomas stepped towards him, holding both hands. What's the matter, Milo? No, not Milo. Ernest shook his head. Well, no more than usual. I'm going away. He folded his arm and looked away. How soon? Thomas asked, his voice taking on a hard tone. I stay the week for the telephone. 88,888,888. Next morning, Milo was up as if nothing had happened. But she did avoid the kitchen, and waited outside when the servants went for their dinner. There we are, declared Daisy, as she saw Milo sitting on an upturned crate. You can have your dinner and all. But Milo turned her head away. She was hungry, but Milo could not bring herself to go in. Instead, she turned from Daisy and headed off down the path and behind the conservatories. The car was half out. The false chauffeur, Branson, looked up from polishing the radiator. Milo glanced at him and skidded on the gravel, heading for the stables. Behind these was the generator room. Milo climbed up the steps, and further up, into the top section, where the hum was loudest. She lay on the shelf, wondering why she had never come up before when she could see the whole southern vista of the Abbey, where the lawn undulated, before dropping down to the river, where the path led by it, then skirted its way down to the west. Milo closed her eyes and woke when it was dark. Torches were shining in the now darkened nightscape. The moon hung, crescently flanked by stars. She knew some of them. Ernest had shown her: Orion, the Plough, Cassiopeia, Cygnus, Draco. She knew that the stars had different temperatures and they were like the temperatures in the forge, only she was yet to see the blacksmith. Milo. Her name penetrated her consciousness, and she sat up. The generator was still oblivious, for its hum did not change. It was no telltale either, for when Milo climbed down the ladder from the top of the generator its hum remained the same as it always did, and she was able to slip out of the generator room door and into the courtyard. It was the brown bee. It was Bates who saw her first, but Milo ran in the opposite direction. Even the terrible ogre of a man could not catch her. She slipped into the generator building and climbed to the top of its structure, and there she stayed until the morning, when she looked down and watched Thomas and Ern kiss one another goodbye.